When I first started playing Night of the Dead, I found the marketing material to be a bit misleading and the tutorial to be lacking in its explanation of what the game actually is. That being said, I still think the game's fantastic for the $25 price tag that I paid, definitely worth it. With that said, I wanted to clear a few things up about the game. First off, it's not really a survival horror crafting game. Yes, you need to survive, yes, you craft things to do it, but there's an unspoken time limit because every day that goes by in this world, the nighttime horde gets harder and harder, and the resources get more and more scarce. So the faster you get your feet into this game, the much better off you will be. Even in multiplayer, there is very much a storyline that has to be followed to its conclusion before the night hordes overwhelm your settlement. So this video is to help you understand how to get started and the goals that you should be setting to survive day one. So, first things first. Before you load the game, go to the options and control. Bind Interaction 3 to the middle mouse button. Interaction 3 is the take all feature that's built into the game. When there is a number of resources that are at your feet, you can either press F to pick up each individual item one at a time, or you can press, by default, the letters T, which would be take all. Since I find that I'm consistently trying to press T to pick stuff up off of the ground, binding it to an otherwise unused middle mouse button made sense to me. I also rebound quick slot 6, 7, and 8 to Z, X, and C. This makes it easier to access the items on the hotbar at the bottom of the screen, because you're going to be using every item in your hotbar on a mostly regular basis, so having access to these easier, rather than putting your hand all the way across the keyboard, could actually play a pretty pivotal role in your survival. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the tutorial. It has you do a number of tasks to get you familiar with the game, and for the most part I agree with these tasks as a linear progression. The game will always dump you near a road, and I recommend that you follow these steps instead of the tutorial to give yourself the best possible start. Now, that being said, in the options menu you may have the ability to disable the tutorial walkthrough. Do not do this. As you complete the tutorial missions, you do get a little reward that are worth it to have at the start of the game. So don't disable the tutorial until day one is complete, or at least until you can complete what I consider to be the day one tasks. Okay, so let's get into it. So you start out with the knife, which is used to break down small bushes. Breaking a bush gets you vines, leaves, tree branches, and sometimes seeds. Seeds are used in small animal traps to get things like rabbits and foxes, and later you use them to plant small garden plots to get vegetables and so on. After harvesting from bushes, bars, and the red barrels that are on the ground, picking up some stones, you should be able to craft a pickaxe, a felling axe, and a clawhammer. Now, I didn't do this in the video, but I really should have. Near the first car at the spawn point, there's like an orange book on the ground. That's the journal, and you need that to follow the objectives. That's kind of the point of the game. I forgot to grab it, but you definitely should not forget to grab it. Now that being said, I wouldn't worry too much about following the journal storyline until day 2 at the earliest. Another thing I didn't do in the video is that I typically keep my knife in slot number 6 on the quick bar at the bottom, which as I said earlier is bound to the letter C on my keyboard. Having the knife quickly accessible is useful primarily because you run much faster when you have a small knife in your hand as opposed to an axe or a gun. So being able to quickly switch to the knife can get you out of danger because with a knife in your hand, like I said, you can run faster than pretty much any zombie in the game, at least that I've come across so far. The pickaxe will allow you to clear rock formations to harvest raw ore. Black rock deposits are especially important and are often worth taking the time to harvest because they give you raw iron, which is needed for a lot of, well, everything. Plain gray boulders are also important for upgrading base components and making animal traps. The felling axe takes down larger trees and the logs that are on the ground so that you can obtain logs and wood resources. And the clawhammer will allow you to quickly demolish a structure after you've crafted or built it. It will give you most of the materials back which were used to craft them. At some point soon after collecting materials, we want to build a foundation and stairs. Then we want to demolish them both. We do this, again, with the clawhammer in hand, walk towards the structure and press F. Then we make an equipment production table. Then you craft a bow at the table, and once you have your bow, we also demolish that table back to get the resources. Craft a few arrows for your bow, and now basically go and loot everything. Loot until your inventory is full and make your way towards the center of the map. You do not need to really engage every zombie or clear every house that you come across. However, the only way to get higher tier weapons like guns and ammo is to venture inside these buildings. It's your playstyle, your choice. Also keep in mind that we don't want to start our base in any of the spawn locations when you first load into the game. Because keep in mind there is a time limit to this game in the sense that it's not going to go on forever like a typical surviving crafting game does, like 7 Days to Die. We want our base to be built near the center of the map so that getting to the story point locations and back to our base is possible within a single day travel or ideally less. You can view the map by pressing the M button on the keyboard. Use the compass at the top of the screen to head to whatever direction you need to get close to the middle of the map. If you happen to come across some of the boss zombies in the early part of the game, sometimes your environment can offer up a distinct advantage which could make the fight a little easier. Also remember that crouching could allow you to sneak past zombies, and if you do not want to engage with every zombie that you happen to come across. Currently, much of the environment is indestructible even to zombies, so use that as an advantage for you. But consider that some zombie bosses can jump to get you, so being on top of something may not always be the best strategy, or at least you may have to find a taller something to get on top of. Otherwise, it's best to stay away until you have stronger weapons. Zombies seem to only really attack things that are in their way in order to get to you, things like traps or doors. However, if you're on top of a building, or in this case a truck, and there's no way for the zombie to get to you, they attack the closest destroyable structure to whatever you're standing to. In this example, this boss zombie was attacking a door to a building that had nothing to do with me, but that's just the way the AI of the game works right now. Once you decide where you're going to set up shop, make your sleeping bag, then replace your equipment production table that you demolished earlier. Then throw down a small animal trap or two. When you do get to wherever you decide to set up your base, again, it's very ideal to be as close to the middle of the map as you can. Try to find a location against a long stone building or some sort of prefabricated wall. Buildings are indestructible to zombies and require you to worry about way less area to otherwise defend when stuff starts to hit the fan. Also, set up two bases. One is going to be your day camp. This is where you go to craft and where you have your storage. Then you have your night base, where all of your traps and defenses will be. They should be close by so that the building materials and crafting are easily accessible for your night base, but far enough away that they're not built into the same area so that if you happen to lose some of your foundations, you also lose a bunch of your supplies or your crafting tables. A research table should be the next priority. One of the first things to research should be Novice Porter, which expands your inventory carrying capacity. Obviously, it's important in a crafting game. As you loot more, you will pick up more research papers, which is one of the ways this game unlocks your skills and abilities. other things need to be crafted to make you stronger or more agile. Now in this video I didn't take a very long time to set up my camp. I just wanted to get the video kind of started. So I didn't have much in the way of materials or research papers, so I had to get back out there and start looting. So later on I come back to unlock Combatant and Martial Artist, which makes me use less stamina when jumping and take half fall damage, which in itself neither of those things are particularly useful in the early game. However, the next branch in the tree is an increase to moving speed and lastly a reduction in noise, which are both very important to survivability for my particular play style. However, that is not a solid recommendation for everyone. Many people go for skills that might allow you to build better tools or take less damage. It really depends on your style of play. And I'm not going to tell you how to play the game or what is fun for you. That being said, I do give a solid recommendation that you need to unlock Junior Engineer and of course Engineer on the research table at some point during day 1. These are required to build some components for even the most basic traps. So now we can knock out some of the tutorial objectives. Build the material production table, which allows you to manipulate raw materials into more malleable things, like turning logs into wooden planks, and eventually, after a few upgrades, raw iron into ingots. Then, build the crafting table, which allows you to make smaller bits like rope and nails. And lastly, your cooking station, which should be self-explanatory. It's also handy to build a few storage boxes, which again, self-explanatory. However, what's good to note here is that when you open a storage box, or any inventory for that matter, you have icons along the top that help you manage your personal loot. The middle window has 4 icons along the top. The first one will sort all of your loot together without any filters. To the right of that, it displays clothing and items equipped in your belt, as well as any ammunition. To the right of that, it will filter whatever food items that you happen to have in your inventory. And lastly, your general building and crafting materials is on the far right. Knowing this will help you sort inventory. Another tip is that if you hold down the shift button and then right click on a stack of items, it'll only grab half of that particular stack, in case you don't want to move the entire thing into storage. Another user interface shortcut of note is when you are looking in a storage container, if you just simply right click without holding shift, just press right click on an item, it will move from your personal inventory into the storage container, assuming that you have it open. Once you've made room in your inventory and set up your day camp, we need to aggressively start searching for materials to build the night base, and hopefully some better weapons. Building the night camp requires some forward thinking. For example, at this location, I built the night base just on the other side of this fence from my day camp. This is so that if my night base fails, the zombies will have to run all the way around the fence in order to pursue me, giving me an avenue for escape. Traps by themselves don't need to be set on top of these foundations, so if you had the materials and you wanted to set a trap out into the world somewhere, you could do it. But at the night base, you absolutely want to have the foundations in place. You have to worry less about uneven ground for when the zombies start coming at you. It's a lot easier to shoot straight on at a target than the alternative. Also, it will bottleneck the zombies, giving them a single point of entry into the night base, which, as you will see, will come in handy when a big horde comes. Building traps might require some materials you can't easily find by looting and may have to be crafted. You will need to upgrade the material production table twice in order to have access to what you need, and as previously stated, you may also need to unlock Junior Engineer and Engineer at the research table to make the components necessary if you were not able to find them while you were looting. The reward for completing the construction of the pendulum is 10 Molotov cocktails. So make sure you add that into your hotbar at the bottom of the screen because you're going to want to make use of those at the end of the night when the big horde push comes. So as I continue to build through this here, you can see that, well, maybe you can't see, but I didn't plan out this base all that great. There are much better base strategies that can be employed that I actually explained earlier in the video, and I'll show you an example of that in just a little bit here. But for the most part, your first couple times through, just have fun with it, and I'll show you what the Horde did on the first night in this particular base. So this video is already 15 minutes long. I think I'll show you my more thought out, better base in another video, provided I get enough likes and what, if people are interested in seeing it. I guess what I'm trying to say is this base isn't the greatest. I know that because I have a much better base already at the time of the making this video, so I will make another shorter video in a while, highlighting some of the features of that base and why it is made the way that it is. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video so far, and let me know if you want to see more by liking and or subscribing, commenting. I would rather comments, really. I don't care if people subscribe or whatever, but I just enjoy the community. Let me know.